My name is Zachery Polk. I want to share a little something that I wrote a number of years ago, and up until now, hadn't shared it. It's been posted recently, but I think maybe it'd be more important if I just spoke it. We, the people, the so-called consumers, are fed up with the frauds and the scandals and with those who promise change, renewing our spoiled hope only to become corrupted to preserve themselves by and from the corrupt. But we cannot find our voice to protest. We've become lobotomized and rendered impotent by the elements that have been fostered into our realities. We know that there have been a great many wrongs done to us because we feel the stings. We cannot put our fingers on the who and what, but we know that it's there. So many of us do the only thing we can. Short of setting fire to the land, we protest with occupations of the very places where we can identify that our money's represented. But the system turns us around and makes us look like a bunch of fools. Perhaps the answers lie within the absence of answers. We've been conditioned for so long to learn the substance of answers instead of asking the more important questions, condemning ourselves to exist within the ideas of others, within their discoveries, instead of discovering things for our very own. Now it seems that we are helpless, but I tell you we are not helpless. Two stories come to mind. One of those stories is of great importance. The sword and the stone, let's say. The sword is the might, the power trapped within. Whosoever can obtain the materials from the stone to make into swords for the people will be honored as a king by them. Today's stone is society, and the sword is the words of society, our voices. Whosoever can find the voices for the people will be a great man. But do not think yourselves into impossibility. Think only of your people, your families, because helping them will help others. Do not try and think on a large scale. It's a collective effort. Get your house in order. That's what it says in the Bible. This brings to me to second story. Let's call it the Karate Kid. It's not until after anger has been put aside that learning, constructiveness, or succeeding can take place. Anger equates to defeat. Energy must be properly channeled. We must each start at home, within our own lands, our own areas, at our own jobs. Focus there in order to tackle the world's problems and issues. We're all thinking of too many aspects of wrongdoing because of the news. We must assemble in smaller groups to focus on one aspect that is within our grasp, that is within our control, that affects us and our communities. That is the beginning. We must all focus on one thing in order to tend to the many. There are many things that need our attention, but there are many people. We must pool together in our areas of expertise. The very first thing we must realize is that it's all about the money. In America, our great-grandfathers were sold on an idea with a promise, the great loan, Social Security. Only now we're realizing that it's proving to become anything but security. People were persuaded with industrialism to leave the frontier and farms, to give their time and their ideas and their inventions to companies for the promise of security by way of a steady wage and benefits. People were persuaded to abandon the early American lifestyle of self-sufficiency, to play along in the game of economics, to be consumers, dependents instead of free-thinking individuals. We are forced to place our children, faith, and trust in a standardized education system so that our children will now be all equally stupid, only sharing each other's dysfunctions and social disorders and diseases. We were tricked into diverting our energy away from our children. We are all slaves, imprisoned in an economic system, investing all of our time to earn money that we are forced to spend, often on goods we are subliminally programmed to think that we need. Many of the things we buy are things we could provide to ourselves at no cost, but we cannot find our time to produce them, let alone to comprehensively take part in our own system, which we are constituents of. We were asked to support world wars by holding various drives and with tobacco consumption, only be rewarded with rations and cancers and later become denied so-called life insurance and medical insurances for being tobacco consumers. We were asked to support millage and tax increases for new technology when we could barely use the tools we already have. We are asked to make donations and support various endeavors that may or may not be important. We're asked to support local organizations and businesses that in our time of need, our time of duress, offer little to no support. We, the people, absorb the cost and expenses of wrongdoing, the mysterious profit losses of big business and the impacts of the scandals and bailouts, the reappropriations and the misappropriations, while selling our national forests and various resources and reserves, little by little. And when we do prosecute those who defraud us, like those involved in the Medicaid and Medicare scandals, we absorb the costs, as well as the costs of their imprisonment. And some of us turn to God for answers, the churches, with man's various molestations, ironically enough, of the Bible. Only we find out little by little that the great harlot has also wronged us, persuading us always to keep working, to keep forgiving these people who cheat us, ignore the wrongdoing, and keep tithing. Retain your place in God's kingdom, all the while they have our trusts and children in one hand and our money in the other. The corruption is greed, and it has become a virus that is out of control. Now we see that it's global, a global economy, a global currency. The euro is the proposed model for it. It may or may not be the answer. The truth is, if we haven't become too distant from what the truth is, until we can control greed, there will be no answers. Only fighting, regardless of whether or not we structure a global economy or currency. Without the skills needed for simple daily existence, for survival, we cannot function to even begin to fight. We've become too dependent as consumers when it comes to survival. Very few of us can do it without robbing, cheating, and stealing, the very cause of many of the situations that we're angry about. We must refrain from buying until prices reflect a serious desire to sell the goods, not taking the most that they can get from us. It's a war, and the war is the money is the casualty, the target. Money has always been time. Maybe if we take back our time, we can focus our energies to work through this with our wits, provided we can gather any wits to incorporate. We must conduct ourselves with common principles and communicate with our respectable actions. Our children will learn from us how we address these problems and issues. We need to eliminate the confusion and reestablish what it means to be men. Only a real man can use intellect and diplomacy to subject himself or herself to a confrontation. We need to work together in principles to resolve these problems for a greater good, starting with the shortage of love, the shortage of real men. And hopefully we can find our absent voices and make it forever present, because without, what has been will remain. And in that, we really have no future. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.